What's going on, guys? It's your boy Sleazy here, and I've got a fun one for you guys today. Absolutely fun. Because in the wake of Disney losing $11 billion, it's not the fans that are pissed that they're making terrible shit and refuse to watch. No, it's not their fault at all. It's piracy. It's piracy that has cost them $11 billion. And absolute atrocious movie ticket sales numbers. But it's totally not Disney doing the most terrible thing they could have and absolutely taking a massive dump on fans and calling everybody every name in the book for not liking their atrocious movies. It's absolutely not Disney's fault. It's the people sailing the seas. But like anything, Disney has to cope by going to the government and saying, "Daddy government, please help me." And like the good boys and girls in the government, they're pushing to crack down on piracy. So we're going to read this article, we're going to see what's going on, and we might talk about VPNs and other things that every person should have access to. So here we go. Disney and other studios with streaming platforms work with Congress to crack down on piracy, arousing free speech concerns and ignoring the real problem. This might come as a shock, but Hollywood doesn't like it when you watch their stuff without their permission. That's exactly what it is, without their permission. Since that practice is illegal, the law is on their side and they have a valid grievance. However, while all appears airtight given the fact of life, there are broader implications. Disney primarily and every conglomerate with a streaming service are towing the line of those implications that involve free speech by dragging Congress into the fray. The two institutions are working together to draft another bill to combat piracy. There's already anti-piracy laws. We don't need more. We need less laws. The Motion Picture Association, in tandem with members of Congress, want to pass judicial site blocking legislation to stem the tide of illegal streaming that has seen a sharp increase in the last year. Not so coincidentally, streaming subscriptions have fallen in the same period. Again, it's not the fact that Disney's put absolute garbage out and nobody wants to watch their shit, not the fact that all these companies are raising the prices on everything to where it's the same price as TV for some of these. It's actually cheaper to get TV and you'll get more. It's nothing to do with that. It's piracy. Not so coincidentally, streaming Piracy has a host of consequences for the MPA is worried about. In the US alone, piracy steals hundreds of thousands of jobs from workers and tens of billions of dollars from our economy, including more than $1 billion in theatrical ticket sales. Yeah, it's not the millions of people who are illegally in the country and working under the table for cheaper and saving the company money that are stealing jobs. It's the people who live in America saying, "I'm not paying for this shit. I want to see what it's like before I buy it." It's not the other one. It's not the former. It's definitely the latter. Rifkin stated its goal to allow film, television, music, and book publishers to request in court that internet providers block websites that share illegal and stolen content. I'm going to talk about that for a second. Well, I'm going to talk about that when we're done with the article, because there are more than a number of ways to get around that. The MPA tried to push legal legislation in 2012 called the Stop Online Piracy Act that failed because it was feared the new law would have a negative slippery slope effect on the free speech of internet users. Even Google and Wikipedia were against it. With today's announcement, the MPA has announced the intentions crystal clear. It wants to give itself and its members the power to force any internet infrastructure provider, up to and including the broadband providers that service your home, to cut off access to websites on their say alone. Do I need to bring up the TikTok ban? No, look, I'm all for banning TikTok just because it is Chinese spyware and it is a spying aid and it's not a real program, but it should be specific and stated for the purpose that it is from government actors, and TikTok is the exception. Not anybody, anywhere, anytime can block any website or application. I mean, quite literally, this would start wars in most countries if somebody was spying and installing spyware on everybody's phone and computers. And back to the article, so I don't have to talk about TikTok because I think it's atrocious. I've never had it and I'm never going to. We oppose any attempt to ram through censorious legislation developed entirely in secret without the public hearing the harsh consequences of the previously failed proposal. This needs to happen out in the open so the public can see all the ways in which this proposal is fundamentally and irredeemably flawed. Protecting free speech to some comes with the false assumption we have to let piracy run wild and unabated. But while the practice might be on the rise and costs show business reported tens of billions, cracking down on it doesn't address the root problem. The piracy in question on the rise is of the streaming content, and this trend correlates with the rise in prices of streaming subscriptions. As Professor Mike D. Smith at Carnegie Mellon University put it to courts, it's hard to get people to pay for something that they know they can get for free. Or inflation is through the fucking roof and people can't afford. I do the same thing when I talk about video games and AAA studio prices for games where they're dropping with $70 and they have day one DLC that's another $70. Normal people can't afford that. And look, I've had in my streams where people are getting money because they want me to buy a game, and I'm like, look, guys, it's nice that you guys want to buy a game for me. You want to give me the money to buy the game. I don't need the money for the game. I don't. But I know there are a majority, 70 or 80% of the United States population that is struggling to pay that price. That's why I'm not going to take your money for buying a stupid game that I don't want to play. I'm not going to do it. And if I want to buy a game that I like, I'm going to buy the game I like. But I am an exception to the rule. I can afford it, but I know most people can't. That's why I bitch and complain. That's why I bitch and complain and complain and complain and shout it out that prices for everything are getting absolutely ridiculous and it needs to stop. Then there exist eminent domain aspects to consider where no personal ownership of the content exists. You don't keep what isn't yours, and the studio it belongs to can eat anything off their platform at leisure. Yes, if you buy it and you don't own it, then piracy doesn't exist because you're not. Let me figure out how to rephrase this eloquently. If buying it means I don't own it, stealing it doesn't mean I stole it. Or in the words of a potentially criminal, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. Yeah, but that's a whole nother topic. You can pay $70 for a game. You can pay $120 for a game. And at any moment, the company can be like, nope, yanked. You no longer can play the game. Ubisoft is a perfect example of the one that's doing that in mass. You buy a game, you keep it for a couple of years, and they're like, yeah, you know what? We don't want you to have the game anymore. You don't technically own it, so you have no access to play the game anymore. But I paid hundreds of dollars for that. Don't care. Fuck you. If people are denied, say, Westworld or Space Ghost Coast to Coast or physical media, and they want it bad enough, they're going to find a way to watch them, no matter how many firewalls and barricades are in the way. But those are examples of old shows. You probably say, what about the new stuff? Assuming that's a serious question, we know how that's working out for them, especially Disney. Shots fired. Again, Disney has shit on the fans for so long, nobody wants to give them a penny. Never has there been more of a glut in the offerings of IPs they own, such as Star Wars and Marvel. Moreover, never have there been greater complaints or disillusionment from fans over the quality and forced messaging layered deliberately with programming. Yes. And that's where I completely see nothing morally wrong with somebody saying, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to see if I can find this on a website and see if it's any good first from something from Disney or the MCU or Star Wars, because most of it is garbage. And people don't want to waste their money on garbage. If they're going to pay for something and not have access to it, then screw the companies. Turning their backs, fans are shutting it off and canceling their Disney Plus bundles. Hollywood can't take them for granted anymore and may be faced with a more serious crisis soon, figuring out how to win the viewers back, assuming they care. They don't care. It's all about the message. It's always been about the message. But there are plenty of sites that aren't hosted in some Eurocuck or United States server. They're overseas where the US really can't do anything about it. They can try and block the IPs, but they can only block them as they're entering the US. Once they're out of the US, it doesn't matter. And that's why VPNs are important. VPNs are extremely important for anybody surfing the internet. One, it helps disguise your IP so people can't figure out where you live. Two, it allows you access to things that, let's say, are region locked, like Netflix shows. So you can hop on a VPN, say you live somewhere else in another country, and watch shows that you can't watch in the US. And I'll let you guys think of the repercussions and how that actually works. But VPNs are a great way to do all this stuff. Now, I'll hear some people, they also stop the government from spying. No, they absolutely don't. That they absolutely don't. And if you don't believe me, I've been a network engineer for 10 years. I've had to deal with federal agencies and all sorts of other bullshit. VPNs don't stop the government at all. And if you don't believe me, just look up Tor, the onion router, and its history of what the government has done to people who have used Tor for, granted, nasty things, but it absolutely proves the fact that the government can get into anything they want. Now, the trick is, will Disney be able to say, I need you to track down every VPN on the planet and investigate them for piracy? Realistically, no. That's never going to happen. But as far as Disney figuring out, or them tracking you from something else, more than likely not going to happen. But VPNs seem to be the way to go. In a day where Disney thinks you should bend the knee, lick the boot, give them all your money while they call you names and absolutely hate you, VPNs are going to be the way to go. There's a ton of stuff out there. You got to do a little bit of research. I'm not going to recommend any of them. And even if they sponsored me, I wouldn't. But VPNs are absolutely going to be the lifesaver for people who don't want to pay for this garbage. And if this bill goes through, because it's not just going to be streaming platforms, I guarantee it, because it doesn't stop there. But guys, I want to hear your thoughts in the comments section on this one. Are you already sailing the seas? Don't post any links to websites. I'll have to delete them because that's technically illegal. So I want to stay out of trouble. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section. While you're there, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this one out. Until the next one, guys, be easy like sleazy.